Are these your favorite Travis Scott Jordan 1s? What's up, sneaker people? It's your boy FB QCING Gear, and we are back with another video. And now we are doing a 2024 update, refresh, what have you, on the Travis Scott Jordan 1 Low Reverse Mocha. Many people justifiably regard these as the best Travis Scott Jordan 1s out there. They're not the best for me, but they're definitely ranked in that upper half of the list. So I love these shoes. They're fantastic, which is why I thought it was a really good idea to do a 2024 refresh, update, legit check guide on these shoes so we can really see where we should be shifting our focus legit checking wise, if we should be doing that. So that's what we're going to be doing here today. Remember, on every single video, I always provide you with a source to look at more pictures of the shoe, just in case I don't focus on everything. These refresh videos are going to be more or less just updates. They should be consumed in connection with the rest of the videos that I've done for this shoe when it comes to legit checking. Do not rely on just one video to provide you everything that you need in order to legit check. This is a continuous effort. This is something that you will need to update yourself on and study so that you can make sure that if you're out here buying these shoes, you know exactly what you're buying and how to prevent yourself from getting scammed. So that Instagram account should still be up on the screen. Head over there, do your research, study up so that you don't get scammed. So with that said, let's get into it. And we have the authentic pair here on the left, and we have the rep pair here on the right. And without even having to really dive into the boxes too much, I can tell you one, the replica box is smaller than the authentic box. Weirdly enough, the reverse mochas come with an oversized box, and I don't know why. This just seems to be common for people that have retail pairs, and it's the same with mine, but the box shapes don't match. And if you guys can tell just based on the front facing portion of the box here, the colors are slightly different. The body of the box for the authentic pair is lighter than the body of the box for the replica pair. So I don't want to spend too much time on the box because the shoes are really what matter. And there aren't that many legit checking tips that I can give you that I have not already gone over in previous videos when it comes to the box. Make sure you're studying up on your tags. Plenty of tips on my other videos about how to compare legit tags versus replica tags. So use those as resources. In this video, we're going to focus on the shoes. So let's get the boxes out of the way and let's focus on the shoes. So here we have the real shoe and the fake shoe side by side. And when it comes to replicas of the reverse mocha, they've always been fairly accurate. And I mean fairly accurate as in it really checks off a lot of the really basic boxes when it comes to general appearance. But when you start getting into the nitty gritty in terms of legit checking, there are definitely things that you can hone in on, which makes it a lot easier to legit check, and in turn makes it a lot easier for people buying authentic shoes to not get scammed, or at the very least, if they do come across a fake pair or they buy a pair that's suspect, there are tools at their disposal to identify the fake pair. So first thing that we're going to do is we are going to look at the colors, because the colors have always been the differentiating factor when it comes to the reverse mochas and most replica shoes in general. If you guys have been a fan of my channel for a while, you know that I always find some sort of color difference. They're not always perfect. So let's do a quick side by side so that we can have a real good view of what is what. So as you guys know, this is my chosen view when I like to do a quick comparison, because when you have the authentic and the rep shoe side by side like this, you get to see so much of the features of the shoe right next to each other, and you can really get a good sense of where the colors contrast. And historically, when it comes to the reverse mochas, there are a few areas that I like to point out that really set the authentic pair apart from the replica pair. But most of this is only discoverable if you're doing what I'm doing right now, where you have an authentic pair next to the rep pair. And I know a lot of people can't do that. So let's do that right now. Most replicas struggle in 3 areas when it comes to the reverse Mocha. 1, the nubuck. 2, the reverse swoosh. 3, the midsole. And if I'm looking at this right now, I can see that there's definitely some of that going on in this pair too. So some of the issues that carry over from previous years like 2023, 2022 in terms of the replica scene, looks like some of these issues are still carrying on, and you can really see it right now side by side in that reverse swoosh. Now, they're not drastically different, but there definitely some difference to them. The authentic pair definitely has a darker toned reverse swoosh compared to the replica, which is paler and lighter, and that shows up side by side when you can see them like this. The next thing that I've noticed when it comes to replicas is this nubuck side panel. While you can have pretty drastic differences in shade of nubuck, going from ashy and washed out to dark and a little bit more buttery and saturated, if that makes sense. But when I compare the two right here, it's not necessarily a tone difference. This replica is a little bit ashier than the authentic and lighter, but there's also a slight tone difference to the nubuck as well. It's a little bit more saturated, warmer of a brown ridge rock, or whatever the official name is for it. It's definitely a little bit warmer on the rep than it is on the authentic pair, which definitely hits at that like deep mocha color, which has like gray undertones. That is something that I've noticed replicas have struggled with forever, for the most part, especially when it comes to the shoe. And you can see that difference for sure on that toe box. You know, these almost favor the Travis Scott Golfs a little bit more in terms of if I had to compare it to something. There's a light, almost warm greenish kind of tint going to it, where the authentic pair is definitely a deeper, darker color. But from a feel perspective, they do feel identical to the touch. But going over to the side, we see the same thing going on with those nubuck panels. And one of the things that replicas have struggled with since they started doing rep Travis Scott Jordan 1s is the Cactus Jack text, and not necessarily in placement. This is placed pretty well. You want to see some sort of engagement with this stitch and the C, and you see that on the rep for sure. Obviously, that type of detail is size specific. My size 11, you're going to start seeing that. The larger in size you go, the more distance you'll see between the stitch and the C. But this is definitely fine in terms of legit checking. Where I call into question this Cactus Jack is the fact that it's definitely glossier and more bold and protruding than the authentic pair. I know it's hard for you guys to see because you're not here in person, but the text is definitely a lot flatter on the authentic pair than it is on the rep. And that is something that is constantly something that you can look at when it comes to legit checking. And then when we go around back, this is where you can evaluate whether or not you have those differences in the midsole color. And I will say that there is a slight tone difference with the authentic pair being a little bit lighter and paler, but they are definitely very close. In my previous videos, I've definitely seen reps that have much different midsoles than the authentic, and this is definitely getting a lot closer. And here is a quick look at the comparison to the embroidery. I say this all the time, guys. I do not use embroidery as a legit checking mechanism because it doesn't look great on the authentic pair and it's not consistent. So I try not to use that as a legit checking method, but you can evaluate the colors here. And they do look pretty identical from that perspective. But there's one thing that I do want to bring your attention to, and this is something that all reps do. If you can see it here, I know I can see it here in studio, but if you can see it here, there is always this slight gray off-white tint to the white leather of replica reverse mochas that authentic pairs do not have. Authentic pairs use a very bright white leather and reps do not. It's super subtle, but it's there. And I don't know if you guys can actually see it well, but there is a tone difference, more so brightness and vibrancy to the authentic pair that the rep doesn't have. Again, super small, not really something that is very noticeable, but those are the kind of details that you look at when it comes to the color on authentic pairs. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about when it comes to color is the tongues and the tongue tags. And generally, the tongue tags are pretty good when it comes to the rep and the authentic pair. You can see the Nike Air looks pretty identical. Maybe the rep is a little bit brighter with the red embroidery than the authentic pair is, but they look fairly identical to me. The difference usually comes with the Cactus Jack tag, and it almost like there's a washed out effect on the backing of the Cactus Jack tag on the authentic pair, on the rep pair, that the authentic pair doesn't have. You can see that the tag for the authentic pair is overall brighter than the rep, but again, very small differences. So from there, the next thing that I want to take a look at very quickly is just the shape, because shape usually is a pretty good indicator, because reps tend to be larger and bulkier, especially with these low cut slim shoes. And let's see if this is still the case. Now, when I compare them side by side, they're pretty fairly close in shape with the authentic pair on top. Keep in mind, I will say that there is a slight heft to the rep pair on the bottom, where it's just a little bit taller and bulkier on that side panel than the authentic pair is. And when you go back to that back section, you can see that the rep pair is definitely wider from the back than the authentic pair is as well. It's slight, but it's there. But the thing that I really like to point out here is the shape of the toe box. And you can see that the authentic pair has it's flat, but it's not very slim, if that makes sense, right? You can see that the profile of the shoe bulges out a little bit. And that's something that I like to look at on every Travis Scott Jordan 1 low. It looks a little bit different depending on the shoe because of the materials, but for these leather pairs, you see this, you see the side panels bulge out a little bit, and it almost creates like a little belly look. And you pay attention to how far up the leather comes onto the toe. Now, when we look at the rep, we definitely see that bulging look, but the giveaway for me is always that the leather always comes up higher on top of the toe for the reps than it does on the authentic pair. It's really hard to see and it's subtle, but if you've seen as many rep pairs as I have, it really starts to stand out. I'd also like to mention that the rep pair is definitely a little bit slimmer on the toe box as well. So don't think that all reps have fat, bulky toe boxes, because that isn't the case. But outside of that, there isn't really much else to look at. I've done blacklight tests to death, so you guys can look at my older videos for that. We've got the laces here. Generally, the laces are slightly different in color as well. Specifically, the white ones are easier to tell. You've got like sail laces on the rep here on the right, and the authentic laces are like minty white, if that makes sense. But more or less, they get everything else close. The browns are warmer on the rep than on the authentic, which is that deeper ridge rock color that I spoke about earlier. And the reds are actually pretty different here too, with the red on the rep being a little bit more vibrant. So keep in mind, use those laces as a legit checking indicator as well. But outside of that, guys, that wraps up the video. Like I said, if there's more details that you want to see, like the Cactus Jack faces, I'll do a quick thing right here for you. But outside of that, I've made plenty of other resources available to you guys so that you can study these more. But first things first, go to the Instagram account on the screen so that you can see that information, so that you can see those pictures and honestly familiarize yourself with what's out there on the market, because these are going for $2,000 now, which is absolutely wild. You don't want to get scammed. So with that said, guys, that wraps up the video. I appreciate you guys for sticking it out with me for this long. I've got a couple more videos that I want to do in this Travis Scott series just to refresh us on how these shoes look. So stay tuned for that. With all that said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.